Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kat from the channel MadKatter, and today we're going to go ahead and go over some background characters in my Decades Challenge series. I spent a lot of time setting up for the Decades Challenge and I spent a little too much time on the characters, and I don't know, I just wanted to show them off a little bit. So strap in, because here's a 30-minute video coming your way explaining all the different backgrounds. Meet King Wulfstan Dawn. This is the Sunborn King of the Sunborn Kingdom. He is a very passionate king who cares a lot about his subjects and spends more time focused on them than he does even his own family. Often he's drenched in work and doesn't have any of the time to be able to see his family or really do anything with them. He spends most of his days working and somewhat ignoring his family other than his heir. Let's introduce our heir to the throne, Kingsley Dawn. Kingsley Dawn is a bit of a reckless fellow, but he is very well trained in sword fighting, and if he could, would probably prefer to be a knight, especially as he was raised by the captain of the knights, mostly. He's very much a partier and spends most of the time with his best friend, the nobleman Edgar, and whenever he can, he makes sure to cause a bit of a ruckus in the kingdom with the ladies. But don't let him fool you too much though, because he does have a soft side, usually with Lark. Lark is the princess of our tiny kingdom here, and she is the most beloved of all the family members, even more than the king, some believe. She is a kind, sweet little girl that tends to take the hearts of just about anyone that finds her. She does have her own little bit of a wild streak though, and tends to wander off on her own. The final member of our royal family is, of course, the Queen, Queen Adelaide Dawn. She spends a majority of her time taking care of her toddler daughter, Lark, but whenever she's not doing that, she tends to respond to correspondences and take care of the kingdom and the social lights of the kingdom. She spends a lot of her time working on this, and whenever she has spare time, she used to spend it with her personal knight, Ryder. Unfortunately, however, they've grown distant ever since she disappeared for 6 months previously. Let's start out with the Captain of the Guard, Ryder. Ryder is the captain of the Royal Knights, and he is also the leader of all of them. He once was personal Queen Adelaide's personal guard, however, he is no longer that because they've grown distant. Now he spends most of his time leading the guard and spending time with the other royal family members. He is very close with the king and the king's son, however, he is closest with Lark, the child of the Queen Adelaide, because she reminds him of the daughter he wishes he had met. The only other knight I'll be talking about in this segment is the Knight Huxley. He lives at the royal palace and is a royal guard. However, he really only got his status because he's a noble. He's a relatively clumsy man and tends to get himself into some odd situations. However, he's very sweet and very smart. That's why he is able to keep the position that he is in. Ryder and him also tend not to get along because Ryder wants him to do exactly as he says, and he tends to mess things up. Let's go ahead and meet the nobles now. Now, starting with the nobles, we'll go ahead and start with Edgar Bouchard, who you've seen once before. Edgar Bouchard is the best friend of the prince, and as besties with the prince, he does have a very high social standing. His whole family, in fact, has a pretty high social standing since they are such popular nobles. Now, Edgar, like the prince, is a party boy. He is more of a party boy than even the prince. Despite all this, he does take the time to work on his dreams, which is to become a knight. As a knight, he is a squire, and hence is the lowest of all the knights. He tends to fangirl over the other knights, and is also very much more of a dreamer than anything. However, his father does not enjoy this at all and tends to want him to follow in his footsteps. He does take his status as squire seriously, though, and also uses it to get with the ladies, because he is more of a playboy than even the prince is. Alright, let's go ahead and continue on with the rest of the Bouchards. Let's start with Edgar's little sister, Rosamond. Rosamond is a very proper individual and prospers under the tutelage of her mother, her mentor. Now, unfortunately, she does not get along very well with her mother because her mother is very strict in regards to her tutoring. Alongside this, her mother tends to have trouble with her since she tends to favor the servants, which is very below the role of the Bouchards. Now, despite all of this, she actually does get along the best with Edgar and her family, which is surprising since even they tend to have their issues. Let's finally meet the father of the Bouchards, Richard Bouchard. Richard Bouchard is a very unkind man, but he is a dedicated diplomat under the king. Because of this, he is very high within his social status and tends to make quite a bit of money. Now, as he is the diplomat under the king, he tends to favor himself as the king's right-hand man, even though this is not quite true. But he considers himself very highly and considers just about everyone besides himself below this status. He does tend to have a lot of trouble with the rest of his family, since he is very mean and very strict. He does love them, but he tends to have a bit of trouble expressing it the correct way, since he just wants to see the best in them, and he thinks the best way to do this is to be more strict, unfortunately. He even has a little bit of a distance between him and his wife. Let's meet the final member of the Bouchard family, Margaret Bouchard, the matriarch. She, of course, is the wife of Richard Bouchard, and she is very much a snob. She tends to consider herself very highly, just as her husband does, and almost at the same status, if not the exact same status, as her husband. Now, Margaret tends to spend the most time with her daughter in the family, since she tends to focus on raising her. However, she does have a lot of issues with her daughter, namely with the servants that tend to treat her daughter well as her daughter treating these servants well. Despite all of this, she does tend to spend time with the queen fairly often, as she is one of the highest social standing members of the royal court. She tends to suck up a little bit to the queen in a lot of ways, but I believe that is only par for the course with her personality. Now, with all of this about servants and stuff, she does have the most trouble with her husband, and, well, part of the reason is because she has a childhood love, the town's blacksmith. Now, she's absolutely in love with him, but she's never said anything because it wasn't a part of her status. She couldn't be with him. She still takes time to spend time with him, but she knows their status is different and tends to hide this fact. Moving on from the Bouchards, let's go ahead and introduce the Barnes. While the Bouchards were the marquis in the court, Florence Barnes II is the baron of the court. He's a sweet and kind gentleman, but he has found himself struggling with money recently. Due to this, he's had to take on a lot of the work around his property himself, alongside his daughter. He has lost his wife quite a while ago, and due to this, he has started to rely heavily on his servant Claude, who has hung around. He is doting on his daughter and tries to give her whatever he wants within his power. However, he is running out of money, so he's currently trying to find her a suitor. He discusses with the queen and has started to talk with the Bouchards as well. Aside from Florence II, let's go ahead and introduce his daughter, Grace Barnes. She is a very sweet individual with her head often in the clouds. She does tend to help around the house more than most nobles would, and she is very close with her father. She is also the primary lady-in-waiting for the queen and spends a lot of her time at the castle. Because of this, she tends to be the first babysitter to watch Lark, the young princess. She also spends so much time around the castle that she spent a lot of time with the prince, and has quite a bit of a crush on him. Unfortunately, he has a best friend that she despises and cannot stand, Edgar Bouchard. Let's go ahead and introduce the Church of the Watcher, the main church of the Sunborn Kingdom. Let's start with Solomon of the Watcher. He is the leader of the church and is very devout. Many people love him, but they are aware that he got most of his current position by being a nobleman that progressed very quickly. He has a not so great side as well, considering the fact that he was a nobleman. He's very obsessed with himself in some ways, just because he did come from a background where he considers himself better than everyone and everyone at the church. That being said, he does take his job very seriously and works very hard to please the Watcher. He has taken an heir in an act of so-called selflessness. This heir he is training to become the next greatest within the Church of the Watcher. However, as he takes on this side task that leaves him so beloved, he does find himself losing some faith as he enjoys some time with Aldheit, his second. He is also close friends with the Queen of the Sunborn Kingdom, and in fact is so close he holds a few secrets for her. The heir of Solomon the Watcher is Joseph of the Watcher. He is the heir to the church, and he is actually very close to Solomon despite being an orphan. He sees Solomon as his only father figure. He's a very sweet and kind kid, and he does very well with the congregation. However, don't be around him on the full moon because he will get a little bit angry and he doesn't quite know why. Moving down the chain of power within the Church of the Watcher, we have Aldheit. Aldheit of the Watcher is the second in command, and she is a very, very respectful and dedicated member of the church. She spends most, if not all, of her time praising the Watcher and doing everything she can to research and find out information. However, she does not get along with Gazilla, the other member of the Church of the Watcher, mostly just because they are kind of opposites in just about every way. Whereas Aldheit is very serious, Gazilla tends to be a little bit more free-willing. Now, alongside all of this, her biggest and darkest secret is that she holds love for the head of the church, Solomon, and she has found herself within his good graces as well, though she'll never tell anyone. Meet the final member of our Church of the Watcher, Gazilla of the Watcher. She is a peasant who turned to the Watcher in a time of need. She's sweet, kind, and is very free-spirited in many ways. But don't let Aldheit confuse you. She is still very faithful and studious towards the Watcher. She maintains her distance from Joseph, however, but she does seem to watch over him quite a lot. Meet our first of the middle class, the cooks. Starting with the cooks, we're going to go ahead and start with Agnes Cook. Agnes Cook is the matron of the Cook family, and she is a very sociable and outgoing woman who is very good at what she does at the restaurant, which is serving drinks normally. Alongside this, she is the caretaker of the entire family, picking up the slack for anyone that might be taking some slack. And she really only married her current husband just to go ahead and gain a position for money because she was a lowly peasant that needed money. She had no family, and she now has made a very big family and loves her life despite a kind of odd husband. Now that we've met Agnes Cook, let's go ahead and meet the husband, the person that Agnes is picking up the slack for. Maynard Cook is honestly quite the man. and not the best way. He constantly is sleeping and is putting off work, and the only reason that he owns a bar is because his dad owns it and still tends to it. Alongside this, Agnes also runs the business, and even though his dad is the best cook, he's definitely slacking. Whenever he's not sleeping, however, he finds himself playing in the bar with late nights and going ahead and taking as much money home as he possibly can. Alongside that, he is definitely not entirely loyal to Agnes. The next in the family is Geoffrey Cook, a widow that lost his wife quite a long time ago and raised Maynard basically on his own. Now, he is in charge of the bar, and he is very sociable and very well known as the best cook in the city of the Sunborn Kingdom, in fact. He loves Agnes with all his heart, but he definitely finds it difficult with his son and tends to pick up for his son's slack more often than not. Moving on to their 3 children, let's start with the oldest, Warren. There's not much to say about Warren, honestly. He's kinda just a tiny replica of his father, Maynard. Next up is his little sister, Ethel. Now, she actually aged up from a toddler to a child by the time I filmed this, and the most I know about her is she's very sociable, and she's very much like her mother in looks. Last up, we have the baby of the Cook family, Brom Cook. And he is just a toddler, so who knows what his future path will be. Even though we're done with the Cook family, we're not quite done with the middle-class families just yet. First, we have our final middle-class family, the Fletchers. To start talking about the Fletchers, we're going to go ahead and start with Agnes Fletcher, who, yes, I realize shares a name with Agnes Cook. Only after the fact, though. Anyways, Agnes is the actual best cook in the kingdom, but that's only because she has a passion for cooking, but never had enough money to start her own business. In fact, she was a peasant for most of her life until her son became a knight. Meet Telm Fletcher, the husband of Agnes Fletcher and the best horseman in the kingdom. In fact, he is such a good horseman that he is the king's horseman. Because of this, he was able to not only get his daughter a job working as a horsewoman, but also was able to get his son a position as a knight whenever he expressed interest in it, just through networking. He loves his family and loves his wife very much. In fact, they're probably one of the best couples that you'll ever meet. Now that we've met the parents, let's go ahead and meet the twins, their children, starting with Britta Fletcher. I know you guys have heard her name before in the series, and that is because she is the wild child. Yes, she is a horsewoman and she is very good at what she does, but she definitely has a little bit of a wild side that just can't be quenched. On top of all of this, she's actually probably a little bit rebellious just because she always dreamed of being a knight, and she didn't get to become a knight. Her brother instead got to become the knight, and jealousy reigns supreme. Finally, the star of the family, the one who raised them from being peasants to middle class, Oswin Fletcher. Oswin Fletcher is honestly a really sweet guy at heart. He spends a lot of time making sure to do chores for his family, and just about everything he does and has done in the past is for his family. Because he's so sweet, he even deals with his sister's wild side and occupies her to her parties and plays the lute so she can dance. Starting off with the peasants, we'll go ahead and introduce the Ides. This is Beatrice and Bertram Ide and their daughter Adelaide. They live rough lives as peasants, but they do the best to provide for their daughter, make sure she's able to play and enjoy herself as much as she wants. They are so incredibly thankful for her and appreciate her so much, and she doesn't even necessarily know why. In fact, they're pretty close with the church, and let's just say that Adelaide will never be having siblings, and they definitely received a wonderful gift from the church one year. Alongside all of this, they still don't know where Adelaide came from, and all they really know is that they are very thankful to the church. Let's go ahead and meet the Brookes. You might actually already recognize Elfric and Elizabeth from our main series, considering we have even named a child after Elizabeth here. They have a child together named Henry. Whenever Elizabeth isn't busy working on the farm, she is a servant to the Bouchards and is actually a very good servant and a very good worker. However, she gets along very well with the youngest, Rosamond, which is much to the disliking of the mother. Elfric, however, works as the town's blacksmith, and he is very well known in his position, and he tends to take pride in his work and take it very seriously. Alongside all of this that's going on in their lives with the chaos of trying to raise a child while being peasants, she doesn't realize her mistress actually has another reason not to like her. Let's meet the next of our many peasants, Alarc Cobbler. That's right, he's a cobbler. Nothing to see here. The most interesting thing about him, in fact, is that his wife died many years ago because she was accused of witchcraft, which he still stands by was a lie. Although that doesn't really explain how, as a peasant, he's able to read and write, nor does it explain how every once in a while something weird seems to happen around him. Meet William Hatcher. William Hatcher is a thief in training, or beggar in training. He ran away from home because he thought he could do better than when he was with his parents, who were also peasants. Now, he's definitely doing better in terms of asking for money, but he also is more than willing to do a lot of odd jobs just to prove himself right. For our final family that we're introducing to you guys today, let's introduce the Fishers. Starting with Osric Fisher, he lost his wife very recently and is the town fisherman. Who would have guessed with a name like Fisher? He relies mostly on selling his fish to the market and also relies on his daughter doing just about all of the housekeeping, although he does manage to get away every once in a while for a bit of fun with an old friend. Aside from fishing, he actually only spends time teaching his son, Nigel, how to fish. Nigel is a sweet boy who's very kind and basically just relies on his sister while he focuses on becoming the town's future fisherman to take up his dad's mantle. Finally, there is the daughter, Emelina Fisher. Emelina is a very sweet girl and does her best to make up for the position her mother left in the family. She works very hard and takes good care of her younger brother whenever Osric's away on fishing trips. Whenever Osric's home and can actually stay home with Nigel, she does tend to get a little wild with her best friend Britta. In fact, she's gotten so wild recently that she ended up meeting someone, and she can't help but say she'd never felt this way about anyone before. Aside from all of this, she does have hopes and dreams of becoming a painter, but alas, that's not necessarily the life for a peasant. That is it for all of our background characters. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about the background characters as much as I did making them. I mean, honestly, I had a little bit too much fun making these characters, if you can't tell. If you guys did enjoy this and you haven't seen my Decades series, please make sure to go ahead and check that out on my channel. I have a whole playlist, and we are approaching episode 5 soon. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this, please make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below who your favorite background character is. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next time.